today I'm going pro. Thanks for watching. It's been ages since I built something, and today I'm building the SCX10 PRO kit, which is a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to doing this for ages. Mine has been lost in the mail a couple of times, so I'm not sure if somebody has been waiting outside at my mailbox taking these from me, but I finally have it in, so happy days. I cannot wait to see what this thing looks like in person. I already went ahead, did a tiny bit of assembling, but I figured that I would take you along sort of along the road just to share my thoughts on this kit so far. It is really unlike anything I've seen from Axial so far. So these axles, they're actually split up in several different sections. So you have the pumpkin section that then has the hardware hidden behind the pumpkin. It has a high entrance pinion gear, so currently this is held upside down, so it will be ran like this. Also, that means that the gears, they're helically cut, so you can see that. So this is an axle that I still need to assemble. So I figured I would complete one first, just to give you a bit of a look. And what really surprised me is that these tubes that connect to that pumpkin, these are actually metal. I'm not sure how the whole notion of these tubes being steel, how that has escaped me. I guess I haven't watched too many videos on the Pro before I was able to get my hands on one myself. But these add so much weight to these axles, these steel tube pieces, that it is a very weighty and also a very well constructed feeling axle once it is done. There's two options for the front axle. So this is the front axle, you can tell that with the non-centered pumpkin over here. And I've set mine up for a chassis mounted servo. You can also use the additional bracket that I have somewhere right here. And you also don't use this mount over here, but you can then mount this on top of the pumpkin, and then you can have axle mounted servo. So there's two options over there, and all of the hardware, all of the plastic bits are included in case you want to go a different route. So that's pretty cool. In the back then you have a centered pumpkin, so it's really easy to keep these apart. Of course, also with the steering knuckles being installed on the front, but goes without saying. So these are done. Then I had to assemble these shocks. Now these shocks, they look a bit odd perhaps if you are used to regular shocks where you have the spring sitting over the shock body and then you have an adjustable shock collar. And they didn't do that with these, just to maximize the steering angle of that front axle. So you could imagine if you have a spring that sits over the shock body and you have a threaded shock body with a shock collar that you can then adjust for adding some preload, for example, that this would increase in diameter. Now they didn't want to do that in designing it. They want to keep this as smooth as possible. So with that you end up with what they call an optimized shock. Now the next thing we need to talk about is this gear case. This was not an easy thing to assemble, so you really need to keep an eye on the manual, do exactly as they tell you, grease everything exactly according to spec, and you will end up with something that looks like this. Now I currently have installed this double fork looking type of thing, and this is a lockout. The transmission allows you to underdrive the rear axle by 40% manually, which it currently is set up as, or with a servo. Now I will be setting this up with a servo. Most likely I'll be using a Reeves micro servo, which I will install in this slot right here, just to be able to move that little arm that is now currently being held into place with that fork shaped piece of plastic. But being able to have that option of having some overdrive in the front or underdrive in the back, or however you want to call it, is of course great. So I will be benefiting from that without a doubt. Now the next parts that I need to do is I need to make some links, install those. Of course, seeing that I have a chassis mounted servo, I'm going to assemble a bit of a different set of links than I would if I would have an axle mounted servo. So that is something that you need to keep in mind, but it is cool to see all of these different options. You can set this truck up completely to your liking. Now the next thing I should do right now is install some links, or build them actually first, then assemble the frame rails, put all of that together, and then finally I'll be able to assemble this transmission case, the axles, the shocks and everything, throw it all together and see how it looks. We're getting one step further. I have completely assembled the transmission case right now. So all of this is good to go. The only thing I have left to do is mounting a motor, but I will do that later. I have a couple of Castle slate motors laying around. One of those will go into this transmission. I'm not sure what KV I'm going to go with, so I will have a look to see what the most used KVs are. I got some 1900 laying around. Also I have a 2250, and I'm thinking that might be good, like a tiny bit of a mid-range type of speed for this particular vehicle. Now I have also assembled the links, so all of this is also good to go. You don't have to keep an eye on how long these need to be, because it's just completely screw down these rod ends and everything is all set. So everything is completely set up right from the get-go. So you will see that you get some high clearance links for the back, and then all of the rest of the links, they're all straight. The only thing that you need to keep track of is if you have opted for an axle mounted servo, you need to assemble a different set of links, of course, than you would if you have the chassis mounted servo, which is the one that I'm going to be running. So a couple more steps to do. You also have stainless steel pivot balls, which is great. So just pop these into your rod ends, and link wise you are all set. Right now I will be moving on to assembling some frame rails. Well, we're again a tiny bit further. I have one part of the frame rails currently assembled, so that's also why I wanted to kind of show you this slice through of what will eventually be an SCX10 Pro. So currently you can really see how this is completely designed with performance in mind. So this skid and then everything that's on top of it, so the whole transmission case, the spur gear, and where eventually the motor will sit, all of that is angled forward ever so slightly, placed deep down inside of that skid, really making it end up in the belly, if you want, of those frame rails. These frame rails, they're aluminum, and also over here, this is of course something that you would not have to concern yourself with if you're running an axle mounted servo, but seeing that I'm going to run a chassis mounted servo, I do have a panhard link over here, and you will see that the mount for that panhard link, so the panhard mount, that as well is done up in metal. So that's really cool to see all of that kind of upgraded right from the get-go. You can also tell I have my high clearance links already installed, because they of course are connected then to the skid plate. Also the front lower links are installed, those are straight. And then right now I have to assemble the other side of the frame rails, put all of the screws in there, and then continue onwards by putting on the axles, the shocks and all of that stuff. You can tell right here, this is one floor pan. The other one is of course already on the frame rail right here, and there is a tiny connection over here. So this is actually a two-part piece. You can see that over here, because this is the part that needs to go then on that other frame rail. So this really covers up nicely all of your hardware and all of the ugly stuff, if you want to end up with like a really completely smooth rock slider. Everything again done with performance in mind, and I think it's starting to look really fantastic. Very purpose built, very much an efficient build. Looks great. Let's continue. Well, the box is empty. That means that it is completely built. So this thing is right now, it's completely done. I will shake the camera a tiny bit because I put the tripod on all of these other body posts. Let me lower my seat a tiny bit so I'm sort of centered in the frame. Let me know what body you want me to use. I have a couple of vintage Proline bodies as well. So I got, I think, a Ram Charger. I have the Rock Van. I have a bunch of stuff that perhaps you wouldn't use on a chassis like this, but it could be fun, of course, to see what's possible. So any of these body mounts will assist you in adapting whatever body style it is you want to have on top of this SCX10 Pro chassis. This is as it comes when it's completely built. When you're done building it, it looks like this. So you have a nice narrow rear bumper as well. Everything is super complete. It feels very nice. Still need to install a bunch of servos, so I'm going to install a Reeves micro servo for the 40%, what did I call it again? Underdrive for the rear axle. I'm also going to install most likely a Mamba X from Castle along with a Slate motor. I'm going to install a Reeves steering servo, and I'm also going to install, because there's room for it, a servo winch. So that's all stuff that I still need to do to button it up. Of course, also a receiver and a radio. Everything else that you need to complete this truck, like for example servo arms, that type of stuff, even tape to secure your ESC, all of that stuff is included. So it is very well thought out. Something of course that's also not included, and you won't get very far if you try to run it like this, wheels and tires and foams. So have a look at that as well. Plenty of cool options out there. I will be running, in the background here, a set of spec RC rims with some nice scale looking tires. But again, you know, all of that is still kind of up in the air because I need to decide what body I'm going to use. I hope you found this an informative video about the Axial SCX10 PRO chassis. I had a great time building this. It is very much in spirit, I think, more in line of the Capra rather than any of the other SCX10 3 trucks that you're perhaps used to. So with that, it's a really cool sideline, I think, from Axial to offer a more competitive, more purpose-built chassis that we can have fun with out on the trails. Again, it took me a while to get my hands on one, but currently it's built, it's fun. Can't wait to take it out. So keep an eye out for that in the weeks to come. Help me decide on a body. Thanks so much for watching. If you wonder about any of the things that you've seen in today's video or any of the other stuff that I've spoken about, so Reeves servos, for example, Castle RC products, or perhaps even what radio I'm going to use, all of the links will be in the video description box. If you have any questions or comments, let me know and I will try to get back to you. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Back on.